Auburn, they've had a really, really strong portal run here. And Hugh Freeze, I mean, he's a little bit on the hot seat, I would say. Auburn, never a job where the fans give much leeway, but huge pickup here with the number one wide receiver in the transfer portal, Eric Singleton, big-time playmaker from Georgia Tech, stays in the South as he commits to Auburn as of this morning. This is a guy out of the Atlanta area. Couple years of eligibility remaining, was one of the best wide receivers in the ACC this past season. Again, big-time playmaking ability. 714 yards in 23, 754 last year. So follows up a really good first season with a great sophomore year. Is a track guy as well, 10.32 in the 100-meter. And you look at this Auburn haul, get a couple quarterbacks, Jackson Arnold, Ashton Daniels, and then you start to pick up some pieces and get some weapons around those guys. This is a big get with Eric Singleton.
I've talked to people who in the ACC who believe this was the best receiver in the ACC this year. The speed is just unreal. I mean, you can go through it track-wise. He finished 4th in the ACC. This is in track in the 60 meters, 6.68. Finished 10th in the ACC in the 200 meters, 21.18. Ran a 10.3 200 meters, so that is just flying. He's not small, 5'11", 190 pounds. Been productive, like you mentioned, Pete. 2 pretty much identical seasons, 56 catches this year, 754, 13.5 yards per catch, and 3 touchdowns. Did basically the same in his true freshman year. Was not a big recruit, number 73 wide receiver in America, which is crazy given his speed and the fact that he was in the Atlanta metro area. A lot of eyes there, but he exploded with Georgia Tech. And yes, he was home in Georgia Tech, but you look at Auburn. Auburn's only about an hour and a half from Atlanta, Georgia, so he doesn't have to move very far at all. His family can still see him play. Goes on to the SEC, and I think with Georgia Tech, you wonder if they're just going to be that kind of run-based team going forward like they were successfully, but maybe not to the level you want as a wide receiver. Flip the table to Auburn, which, look, was not a dynamic offense this year by any stretch. But if you look at what they're building, 2 top 10 recruiting classes in a row. You got Cam Coleman, elite talent at receiver. You're seeing his peers, the Jeremiah Smiths, the Ryan Williams, the TJ Moores, all make plays on the big stage. He's capable of doing the same. You also have Perry Thompson, Malcolm Simmons, some other very good receivers from that class. You add Horatio Fields, the transfer from Wake Forest, 4-star transfer, big body guy to bring a veteran presence to the room. You got 2 offensive tackles that were 4-star transfers, Xavier Chaplin from Virginia Tech, Mason Murphy from USC. And then, of course, at the quarterback position, you don't add 1, you don't add 2. You really add 3 quarterbacks to this room. Jackson Arnold, former 5-star, the Oklahoma transfer. Ashton Daniels, starting quarterback for Stanford this year, more of a running threat, but an experienced guy. And then Deuce Knight, the true freshman who we saw in that Alabama-Mississippi all-star game. I mean, he looked like the best player on the field, completely dominant, running, throwing. He can help you at least running right away if you don't use Ashton Daniels for those packages, or Jackson Arnold, who himself's a great runner. So this offense has added a ton of juice, and what Singleton brings is a different speed dynamic. You know, Coleman is big and fast, but these guys are really, you look at the young receivers for Auburn, more size over speed. Horatio Fields, probably more of that physicality. Singleton is the true, legit burner who is going to be one of the fastest players in the SEC day one. With Isaiah Bond moving on, he might be the fastest player in the SEC day one, certainly the fastest of the guys that actually play and make plays. So if I'm Auburn, I'm feeling great about what this offense can be. You've seen Hugh Freeze have great offenses in the past. If he can't get it done with this amount of talent, something's wrong, because he has a lot of options. If one quarterback doesn't hit, he can go to the other one. If one wide receiver gets hurt, he's got others there. There's no excuse for this Auburn offense to not be one of the top offenses in the SEC next season.
Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing if it's not a 9-10 type win season for Hugh Freeze, it's game over for him.
Kane's Cat saying Auburn is playoff or bust, but I expect a 6-6 type of record. That would be tremendous disappointment, no question about it. But look, Hugh Freeze is not an unproven coach, right? This guy's had success. He's had success in the SEC. He's had success in the South.
In big games.
He's from the South. I mean, it's not, a situation like, your prior coach kind of fish out of water. he is the kind of guy who should succeed here. He just needed talent. The quarterback situation, I don't think was managed properly last year. Most people would agree. He probably should have brought in some more juice there. Not that Peyton Thorne was the cause of all the problems, but he wasn't the solution either. There were a lot of problems with this team. Now with the talent that's brought in and the fact that, look, if Jackson Arnold's not the guy, if he's not the 5-star you thought coming out of high school, Ashton Daniels can go and win you games. And if you go to Deuce Knight, this is a premium talent, man. I mean, I'm a little surprised they brought in Ashton Daniels, because when I look at Deuce Knight, I see somebody who can really, really hurt you in multiple ways and quickly because of his physical maturity. He's not a polished passer yet, but look, you could go out there, you're talking about Eric Singleton. You could have Eric Singleton coming on that jet sweep, or even lining up in the backfield, playing that Percy Harvin role with a Deuce Knight being that Tim Tebow or Cam Newton run threat up the middle, even as his passing develops. You have to respect him because he can run you over and he can go 70 on you. And then, of course, if you go over the top, you have a guy like Cam Coleman, who's one of the best young receivers in the country, a 5-star, a peer of Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams. So this offense is very, very tough to stop on paper. Like I mentioned earlier, the tackles have been supplemented. You've had great recruiting classes. Now it's time to be a playoff team and one of the best offenses in the SEC next year.
If you're Jackson Arnold, compared to your situation last year, you gotta be pretty happy with some of the weapons you have around you this year at Auburn.
No question. And look, this is about how this offense might look. I know that Singleton just left a team where they had running quarterbacks, right? This should be an offense that still runs with the quarterback, because both Arnold, Daniels, and of course Deuce Knight, they're all runners on top of being able to throw to varying levels. So you'll still see the quarterback run. I think you'll still see Singleton involved in jet sweeps and things that the ways he was used at Georgia Tech. But these guys can pass as well. It should be a very difficult offense to defend. And if you're Singleton, you're going to the SEC. Reports say he's making over $1 million. So he's getting paid, and he's going to be in an offense with a lot of talent that's not him, right? So defenses can't just say, hey, we're taking Singleton out of the game, which I know other teams did to Georgia Tech.